We're back from our break.
And a lovely break it was.
And a lovely break it was.
Indubitably.
So we're gonna kind of get back into it, and I just wanted to introduce Slouch. He's gonna be pulling up some sources as we go along. Right now we have a live counter from Johns Hopkins University. We're at 156,241
And counting.
total confirmed worldwide.
And counting.
That's infected people, and then there's also a death and recovery counter for people who are not watching. Yeah, jumping back into it, I guess the question, to get us started is, why is it spreading so quickly? What brought us to where we are right now to over 156,000 cases in the world?
Okay, well, first, before we jump into that segment, let me just say that for those that have been listening up till now, that we've presented you with the facts, basically, as we know about the coronavirus. So we certainly, I think, all of us would suggest that you should do your own research. In other words, by all means, research this. It's been talked about extensively, whether once again it's on the news, but in the internet, there's all kinds of information that you can get for it. So we would certainly suggest that you do your own research and you know what this particular virus is. Having said that, so going back, I think we need to go back to the timeline of December the 1st, which was the first time that it was starting to spread in China. And it's fair to say that I think it quickly spread at that time. I think based on news reports, if my recollection is correct, by the time here, the Trump administration in the United States, we found out about it, of its serious spread, was sometime, I believe it was like in the first part of January. As a matter of fact, I think the first case that we had was in the state of Washington, here in the United States, and that was around the 1st of January, I believe, if my recollection is correct of the time.
You should pull that one up, Slouch.
And what happened in China? Why did it spread so fast? And I think why are the numbers correct? And why didn't China or the Chinese government, President Xi, which is the president of China, why, first of all, did he not make that known sooner? Why did, after it was known to the World Health Organization, which is referred to as WHO, WHO, why did he not ask for help? Actually, I should say he was the WHO organization, even the Trump administration, told them that they would be happy to help him with any way possible, whether it was expertise, science, whatever they needed.
And he didn't publicly reach out to them.
No, he did not, but he actually refused them.
Publicly?
He basically said, we're fine, we're doing fine, we don't need your help, and they were not even allowed to go in during that time, if my recollection is correct. The World Health Organization finally, I think after a number of weeks, I think it was 3-4 weeks, finally went in and started, the process of trying to figure this thing out and help them. By that time, this virus, of course, had spread, throughout the whole province. And it was actually got to the point where there was infected in Beijing, which was much further away from this particular province. I think if you're looking at, since this is called the Sham show, and we all know that all kinds of shams exist, I think if you ask me, what is important to state here, I think in my opinion, that once again I was following this, was the fact of the reluctance of China to have other countries come in to help with their expertise, with their knowledge, and also I think I believe it's not a transparent let's say country where you can really get a lot of information, and I think you have to take whatever they tell you with a big grain of salt, because what they're telling you may not be true, and I think that was a lot of people thought that the numbers that at the time that they were giving, when it started spreading and getting serious, that it was 10,000 or 20,000 or 30,000 that were infected. A lot of people believe that those numbers were simply not true. They believed that it was much more than that. And you know what? I think we'll never know that.
That's a general consensus. That's, I would say, a truth just with China in general. Like you said, past outbreaks.
That's a sham right there.
Yeah, the
in and
whole
of itself. Lack of transparency.
I don't want to get into the politics of that too much, but the communist aspect of it and how they do try to keep things under wraps for whatever reasons. Maybe to prevent panic or maybe.
I think when something like that happens, I think
they have their own motive.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a legitimate, perhaps, motive in a sense. Certainly for something like this that can spread so quickly, it's infectious and it can kill people. I think maybe any government could be hesitant at first to panic its people, and so I think that's understandable. But also, I think
the same is true for the U.S. and Trump in this situation.
I think so too. I think it's true for perhaps any country to let really panic get out. But I think it's important also that we as citizens of any country, we are entitled to that information. We are entitled to know what is going on and not give us false reasons or false numbers or give it to us straight, basically. So I do believe. I guess if you're asking me whose fault that or the fault that it's spread so fast and so rapidly, I think a lot of that blame, unfortunately, rests on China and what they did.
I'd say a lot of the initial blame, the reason this started and it spread to the point where it's at, for sure, China.
Yeah, there's no question in my mind.
And that's a general consensus. I wouldn't even say that's much of an opinion. That's kind of, I wouldn't quite say it's a fact, but yeah, they certainly did things that slowed the process and didn't cooperate as well as they should have.
No, in my opinion, absolutely not. So having said that, so obviously we know now today that this particular disease spread from China, and then I think from there the main other country that got the most was, of course, in Italy, and
why Italy? Just based off of traffic.
Well, I think there's a couple reasons here, and one of them is the fact that in Italy, which is really out of all of the European countries, that is the one that's being hit the hardest right now at this point in time. I think you're going to see as we go further along, you're going to see more and more cases, whether it's in Germany or Spain and Austria and Switzerland and
Kurt, you want to read
France.
The numbers for U.S., Italy, and China just for people who are not watching?
So China, 80,995 confirmed cases at this point. Italy, number 2 behind that, 21,157 confirmed cases. And in terms of deaths, China's over 3,000, Italy's over 1,400.
U.S. is about 8th on the list of confirmed cases, so we're on the list of confirmed cases far down, and we don't even make the the death list because of a outbreak in Washington, 37 deaths. But just to give people an idea, we are 8th on the confirmed cases list, and that's a whole topic in itself because you only have confirmed cases when you have test kits.
Right.
And, the U.S. and certain places certainly don't have the test kits, and we'll get into that in a moment.
And also, speaking of the test kits, it's important to note that, once again, we were talking about Italy, and Italy seems to have the highest number of confirmed cases and also deaths. It has been said that the reason why Italy, at the beginning of this, in Europe, had so many versus other countries that had very, very few, like France and Germany, was the fact that Italy was actually the first country to actually perform the testing of the kits. And that's why you had such a, in the thousands and 2,000 and 3,000s, because Italy was the first country to do that versus other countries like Germany and France that were not doing it.
So they were just more aware of the actual COVID-19 cases.
Exactly. So it could very well be that if France or Germany or Spain maybe had more cases. It could very well be, maybe not, but they were not testing. And so Italy was testing, and so by testing, you could discover that you had the cases. It's also fair to note that there has been some stuff running on social media that from supposedly credible sources that said that the actual first European to have an actually documented case of the coronavirus was actually in Germany, and he had come from the Wuhan province. So again,
do you want to explain the demographic of northern Italy and that?
Sure. Yeah, so another reason, supposedly, once again, because on social media now there's all kinds of things that come out, and I think one has to you have to look at it and
Decide
see-
what you
and,
can believe
and decipher,
what-
from the wheat and
where
from
the
the
truth
chaff, whatever,
lies.
from the truth is. But I think there could be some truth in this because I'm obviously familiar with Italy. So the northern part of Italy is the industrial part of Italy. Once again, the other thing is that the total population, Italian population, is about 60 million people. That's the total Italian population. 60 million people. But from travel magazines, if you were to look up, I think you'll see that overall, Italy is one of those European countries. I think it's either number one, probably European countries that has traveled the most from all over the world as far as tourism. And they have from 73 to 75 million people that go to Italy every single year. So here you have a population of 60,000 million population, but you have 73 to 75 million people a year that travel to Italy, which is a major.
More tourists than residents.
More tourists than residents, exactly. So with that, of course, no matter where you come from, you're going to have obviously huge infectations versus a nation that has a very small tourist, population.
Right, and China is relatively close to Italy, and I think it's fair to say it's a popular tourist destination.
Very
spot
popular for the Chinese people. Very popular.
I've seen it myself.
Japanese and
You've seen
Chinese,
it
yes,
in
indeed.
Italy.
Yeah, very well. Like I said, I was born in Tuscany, so in Pisa. If you go to Pisa, where the Leaning Tower of Pisa is, you'll see everybody from all kinds of walks of life. And sure enough, you can see that the Asian population is pretty big there as far as tourists. But Italy's a beautiful country, and so many people go there to visit. The other thing is that in the northern part, which is more the industrial part, there is a huge business there, factories that make industrial of leather goods, whether leather handbags that women, of course, love, leather jackets, etc., etc. It is said now that a number of months ago, or close to a year ago, a lot of these companies that were Italian-owned companies by families that have been run for many years, have apparently a lot of them sold these manufacturing giants and factories to Chinese nationals. And supposedly there is about 100,000 Chinese nationalists from the Hunan province that have actually migrated to the northern part of Italy. And this is hence the reason why when the news reports first came out in Italy, that the northern part, which is called Lombardia or Lombardy, which involves, if people have gone there, like Milan and of course Genoa and Torino and Venice. These are the northern parts. So there's a huge concentration of Chinese
migrant
workers and owners from Wuhan. So whether that played into it, and if those stories eventually resolved to be true, I mean, obviously that's a big fact.
It does make sense because
that would explain it.
Lombardia is the only one that's under complete quarantine,
Yes.
whereas the rest of Italy it's a national emergency, but not entirely under quarantine. Is that right?
No. So yeah.
Or it was first to be under
so
quarantine.
when Italy first started experiencing this, it was the northern part, and what they actually did was it was about 15 or 16 towns in the northern area that were literally on lockdown, and so that was, I want to say, probably about 2 weeks ago. But unfortunately, the virus was spreading, and it was spreading very rapidly throughout the northern region. And so Prime Minister Conte, which is the Italian sort of president, decided, this was last week, decided to quarantine the whole northern area. And a day after that, he did what no other country has done in the world, and literally quarantined the entire country of Italy and Sicily and Sardinia. So that was the first country in the world. The whole country, in other words, was quarantined. Now let's keep in mind that Italy, of course, is I think the size of 1.5, almost twice the size of California. So it's fair to say that as far as
Smaller than Texas.
yeah, it's actually, I think, smaller than Texas. So it's fair to say that
It's like a large state.
It's a large state, but it's notable to say that was the first country,
Right.
the entire country, to be quarantined, which is an extremely aggressive step to take, because then we have to consider when that happens, and it may well happen here in the United States. I'm not saying, hopefully it does not, but it could very well happen here.
I believe that it will, personally. My opinion, that is coming. We just haven't received the test kits. There are more cases of COVID-19 in the U.S. than we're aware of, and I think that there's a think we have some information on test kits coming in. But I think when we're more aware of cases, we're going to find a lot more, and it's spread more than people think. But that is my opinion.
Well, let's hope we don't get to that point.
Certainly.
But based on, I think, and I don't know what the current where we are currently, but the last time I checked, which was actually yesterday, I think out of the 50 states that we have, I believe it was 34 or 35 states that at least in those states, there was the
Could you pull that up? And then
COVID-19.
The first case in the U.S. as well.
So having said that, let's go back to Italy and talk about sort of the problems that they're having, because I think it gives us an insight perhaps as the problems that we may be experiencing here in the United States. So in the northern part, again, what happened was literally 2-3 weeks ago, those numbers started going up precipitously. And not only the infected rate, but also the death rate started going up on a daily basis. And so obviously the Italian government was concerned with that. So by doing a total lockdown of this country, of the Italian country, let's think about the implications that can happen. So literally right now, first of all, you cannot travel to Italy. Actually, right now, you cannot travel to any place in Europe. But when you were not able to travel to Italy, yes, Mark?
January 20th, 2020 was the first U.S. case. And that would be, I believe, Washington.
Yeah, it was in Washington.
Yeah. So
Yep.
January 20th.
Well, actually, I don't know. I see this as January the 19th, but yeah. So, anyways, but it was certainly in the beginning of January, or
confirmed the 20th.
Right.
It seems.
So right now, if we're looking at Italy right now, people literally are on lockdown. What does that mean? That means that people are asked to literally stay inside their homes. They simply cannot leave their homes. They're quarantined.
No weddings, funerals. I saw as well.
Right.
Literally to the point.
Right.
Anything social, forget about it. To the
Right.
point of weddings and funerals, and that's something I don't even know what happens when someone passes away.
Well, you
What is it? Is it like the
No.
Black Plague where they go through with the carts and load the bodies?
Well,
Bring out your
Bring
dead.
out your dead.
Bring out your dead.
it's
what-
well, in China actually they were burning
Yeah,
cars,
and
people
I've
that were
seen
buying
that.
it, and they were working 24/7. So there's information that if you're interested, go on the internet and you can Google all that and get it. But obviously, serious stuff here. When you have that, they were literally burning furnaces, working 24/7 to burn the folks that had passed away. So in Italy now, with the total lockdown, you're absolutely right. So now state mandate that you cannot, bars are closed, the restaurants, no theaters, no gatherings, concerts, sporting events, which we're seeing that here now. If you had a wedding, you're going to postpone that wedding. You're not getting married. A funeral, again, no attendance on funerals. It's a complete total lockdown. The only way that people could actually leave their houses without being arrested from the polizia, which is the police, was if you had to go and buy groceries or go to the pharmacy. Otherwise, you could actually get arrested.
And that's currently the way it is.
That's currently the way it is, and that order stands until at least the 3rd of April. At least until the 3rd of April. So, and that was put in order last week, the middle of last week, when Presidente Conte did that.
I'm going to be reminding people throughout all of this, again, think of the, not just the impact on hospitals, but the social impact, the economic impact, the political impact.
Astounding.
Think of all the weddings that were booked. Think of, all these businesses. How are people living? We'll probably maybe pull a video up, or we'll definitely reference Trump's video later, but, he suggested basically compensating people who, compensating small business owners, compensating workers who are out of work. And obviously, in the case of America, that's billions, trillions of dollars. Mm-hmm. So you got to think about this throughout all of these countries in every aspect of their lives. They're literally staying at home, not allowed to leave unless they're getting groceries or pharmaceuticals.
So I want to bring up another subject as far as we're talking about the hospitals. From my experience in Italy, I will tell you this. That, and I've said this before on many occasions, as you know, Marco. Italy is comprised of private hospitals, private clinics, private doctors. In other words, Italy has what's called universal care. It's had it for many, many years. People would pay with something that's called a multa, which is actually taxes that they pay. And by the way, the taxes in Italy are astronomical, literally astronomical.
Something is I don't know exactly how it is, but it's similar in Canada. Universal health care.
Yep, and that's why their taxes are higher than ours. But in Italy, the taxes in Italy are very, very high.
I'm glad you brought this up because I've heard a lot of people basically discount what the Italians are going through because Italy has terrible health care, is what they say.
Yeah,
And that's not the case.
Yes and no.
Yeah, not exactly the case.
Right, yes and no. And let me explain that because I think it's important to point this out.
Very.
So once again, Italy has what one would refer to here as universal care. They pay very heavy taxes. The bulk of that goes literally into the medical field as far as for the universal care because it's huge. Now, and so I will tell you from personal experience, when I say personal, I've been in those hospitals, and from friends and family that have been there, I can tell you stories. And here's what I will be able to tell you in reference to that. For those of us here in the States that are thinking that universal care is a good thing, I've always said, look, if you really believe that, do yourself a favor. Go to these countries where there is universal care, and then just live there and make sure you get some sort of disease or you get sick, and then experience it firsthand, and then please come back and tell me how you liked it so much.
But literally, if you're interested, spend a year in Canada, spend 5 years in Canada, and actually live it because people have. And that's why they come to America.
Well, let me say this. The Canadian system, because we also, as you know, have relatives in Canada. We have many friends and relatives in Canada. The Canadian system, I think, the public system is much better than the Italian system. There's a difference from country to country. Yes. Okay, so I think we need to make that understanding. But it's certainly the best system, in my opinion. The best healthcare system that we have is right here in the United States of America. Now, if you ask me, is our system whacked in the sense of does it need correcting as far as the enormous amount of money that we pay? I mean, it's
the insurance scams and the medical. Of course, there's issues.
There's definitely issues, and that's what we need to correct.
But as far as where do you find the best health care? I think it's probably fair to say America.
There's more people that come from all over the world to America that they don't necessarily go to either whether it's Italy or Canada or other countries to get their health care. Now, having said that, going to Italy, so I can tell you this. So there is the public system of healthcare throughout all of Italy, and including Sicily and Sardinia, and then there's the private one. If, God forbid, I go to Italy and I feel sick and I need some sort of operation or whatever, I absolutely, let me just say this again, I absolutely will not go to their public system. Now, I will go to a private hospital, I will go to a private clinic, I will go to a private doctor and pay. You have to pay. But I will not go to a public system, especially if you go to anything from Rome, which is basically the middle of Italy, or anything south of there. Now, having said that, let me just say this. If you're in the northern part of Italy, the majority of the public hospitals and clinics and doctors are actually not that bad. Italy is actually, to my surprise, was ranked as number 2 of the best healthcare in the world. That's in the private sector. That's in the private sector.
And northern is largely because of the concentration of manufacturing. Maybe they have more money for private health.
But also it's fair to say that we Italians know this. Tourists that go over there don't know this because sort of the industrial part and the sort of the where you find the, how do I say this without being too offensive? I mean, the further down you go from, the further down you go from south of Rome is where you find.
What, rednecks? Italian rednecks?
No, I wouldn't. What is it? No, I wouldn't say that. But I think sort of there is.
There's a difference in class between northern and southern.
All right, thank you for saying that. Yeah, and so
between northern Italy all the way down to Sicily.
There's definitely socioeconomics, but I think there's. Things work much better in the northern part of Italy than, let's say, they do in the southern.
Right, and honestly, there's more money if there's more manufacturing industry. That's how it is.
But the whole administration part is different because let's not forget that even though Italy is one country, there is different provinces like we have here in states. So they're run differently by their own governors, etc.
So it'd almost be like a state where we have, northern Illinois versus Chicago versus Springfield. Things are handled differently, different amounts of influence and money and industry and all those parts. It's comparable in that way, and you're saying that northern Italy possibly has better health care.
They have excellent private health system.
They have better health care in northern Italy than southern Italy.
Absolutely. So primarily in the southern part of Italy, you'll find nothing almost but public health system, which I hate to say it, but is not good. And the further you go south, the worse it gets. So going back to Italy, and there was reports coming out of Italy as of literally just a week ago that the hospitals were inundated with the amount of people coming in that were infected, and there was reports by saying that they literally had to choose between who was going to live and who was going to die because they didn't have enough beds, respiratory systems,
Literally,
medicine.
they were pulling the plug on patients.
They couldn't help them. They just simply
sending them
couldn't help
home.
them. Yeah.
Maybe.
So I mean, when you get to that point, it really sort of strikes a nerve and makes you think. And we hope that it doesn't get that way here.
So yeah, for us,
That's why all of these preventative measures are so important.
Absolutely. In our perspective, let's keep it relative to us in Illinois and America in Rockford. Here we are. What does Italy have to do with us? Why are we talking about Italy? Is it worse in Italy than it is here? Currently, definitely. Will it get that bad here? There's different factors to it. There's a different healthcare system entirely. Right. There's a difference in testing kits and how we're set up as societies. So, as we're talking about Italy, let's keep in mind, keep in perspective that most of our listeners are from the U.S. and how that it's going to ultimately affect us. Right.
So after I was saying that, it just came to my mind when we were talking about that. I don't want to make it sound like the southern part of Italy is terrible or bad, because I will tell you, I've been to the southern part of Italy. There's incredible, beautiful places, and you've been there also, right? So if we just as a comparison, yes, but as a comparison, if we when we went to Sicily, drove down to Sicily years ago with Nona and all of us. So we left Tuscany and we drove down, and then we stopped, of course, in in Sorrento and Capri and all that. And that part is absolutely stunningly beautiful. It's amazing. The Amalfi and Sorrento coasts, which are south of Naples, are absolutely beautiful, and that's in the southern part. So it's not to say that all of the southern part is
some of the most beautiful sights you'll see in the world.
Absolutely, and there's a lot of things that work really, really well and beautiful down there. So I don't, by no means I want to say that. Now, having said that, so now today, Italy is complete lockdown. Will be at least until April the 3rd. We hope that after that they can get this thing under control.
It's fair to say, just to conclude, that when people say Italy has bad healthcare and we have better healthcare, that's not necessarily true.
Nope.
And another factor in that is the confirmed cases, test kits,
and they are literally overwhelmed.
And then them receiving test kits before any other country in
exactly.
Europe.
They were the first European country to actually do it. It's a domino effect. It's crazy when you think about it, that you have entire countries that are shutting down. I think pretty soon you're going to have, of course, Germany and the Netherlands and Portugal and Switzerland and Austria. You're going to have all those countries, I think, pretty soon. Because think about it, they all have open borders to the European Union. So,
and again, to paint the picture for people who are not as familiar with geography, Europe and the U.S., Europe is close. European countries are similar, I would say, in size to states
that we have here. Yeah.
So basically, just think of the states falling in that way.
Yep, exactly.
Throughout Europe.
Exactly right. Yep. So, having said that, let's talk about the United States, which of course is of great importance to probably the vast majority of our listeners. Even though I'm sure we have people in Australia now that are listening to us.
Of course, we'll have Italians
while they're petting their kangaroos.
Yep. As soon as their fires go out,
Exactly. And speaking of Australia, it's actually spread to, of course, all other Asian countries. Let's not forget.
This is
continent. Not every right, and this is another good point. So the WHO, what was it, last week, in the middle of last week, the World Health Organization, the WHO, finally, it was at epidemic levels. Now it's pandemic, and in order to qualify that, my understanding is that every continent in the world has to be hit with some sort of this particular disease, and every continent, in fact, has been hit or was hit last week,
including Antarctica.
No, actually, Antarctica was the only continent that was not, and but only bears live there. So just send somebody over there, hug a bear, kiss a bear, and they get it, I guess. And
that's not a hard one to quarantine.
That's not a hard one to quarantine. So it's fair to say that the whole world here is involved with it.
Down there, not the
no confirmed cases that we're seeing. Refresh it.
So now with sort of everybody on this situation. By the way, I think it was 3 or 4 hours ago. It was reported that in the continent of Africa, out of 54 countries, I think it was 26 or 28 countries that are now affected there, which is serious stuff. So once again, let's talk about the United States, because that's of course of importance to us here now. Here's the thing that is troubling to me. Two things. From a lot that I've read in the medical field, I'm talking about experts, doctors, scientists. There is a split in the United States in reference to this COVID-19. And the split is that some doctors are saying, look, this is overblown by the media. This is all hyped up. Take it easy. It's just like an influenza. It's just like a cold. Then there's all those other doctors saying, no, it's not. This is serious. This is going to get more serious, and we need to take this more seriously. So I'm amazed at that, quite honestly, that you have literally doctors, scientists, experts that are literally split.
And coincidentally, our politicians are also split.
And coincidentally, I think what's further disturbing to me is that we literally have our politicians
And the public is.
and the public is split, that we had talked about previously, that this has become a partisan issue.
Crazy, because how does a virus outbreak become partisan?
It should not.
It has, obviously.
So I would say this to my Republican and Democratic friends, because I have friends on both sides. I would say, like I said at the beginning of this, to me, I think this is serious. We should not get to the point of a panic. But I think we have to take it seriously, and I certainly take it seriously, because you alluded to the fact that I have an 82-year-old mother, which I happen to love very much, and we all have mothers or aunts and uncles that obviously are more prone to this, especially their older, more immune system. And it also has been said, that we have talked about, is that this affects older people, senior citizens, but especially men more so than women. Which we joked about this earlier, that we think it was actually a woman that started this to get rid of the men population. Now, you could have just sent us to Mars and be done with it, but no.
We'll do it this way.
We'll do it this way to get rid of all the men in the world. All right. So obviously I'm concerned for my mother's safety, for my aunts and uncles' safeties, and really for everybody, the senior citizens' safety. So you as young people I think, are much luckier when it comes to this, because your immune systems and et cetera. But so people are saying, look, and some are saying, stay home. Let's try to defeat this by staying home and not letting it spread. There's a lot of people that, of course, even in the medical and also in other political communities, are saying, hey, don't worry about it. Go out, have fun, because you're stopping the economy of the United States, which
right.
that is a concern.
What
it's
happens
true.
when everyone stays home?
No, it's true, and it's a concern, and we're going to talk about that. So, but here's the dilemma for me, is that if you take that kind of attitude, and we should not, I think, take that kind of attitude, but if you take that kind of attitude and say, let's go about our business as we've always done, to go out to the restaurants and bars, and God only knows, I feel for them. I had a restaurant for 40 years. I feel for that, and I know what that industry is like with low margins and everything else. To literally shut these people down for weeks or months, it's going to hurt their bottom line and their employees. It's a ripple effect.
Right.
It's a ripple
They can't
effect.
get rid of.
Everything from distributors, manufacturing people that produce. I mean, it's incredible when you think about that. But so I say to those people, if we go about our business and pretend that this thing is just like the common flu or just the cold, and I have it and I start spreading it to a bunch of other people, at what point do we say, is it okay? So if we spread it and 1,000 senior citizens, older people die, is that a good number? Can we stop there, or do we continue? Is 10,000 okay? Is 100,000 people that die, is that acceptable?
Because we are talking about more deaths than the common flu.
Exactly.
Period.
Exactly. And
As far as we can tell.
so that's the problem that I have with this, with people that say, let's just go about our business of it. And I understand what they're saying. But again, where is it that acceptable? How many people do we let die because we continue our daily lives the same way? What number is acceptable?
And to clarify, it is a higher death rate. So yeah, more people have not died currently, but it's a higher death rate. continues as it is, then we're looking at more deaths.
Right.
I believe when I looked into it last, which was a couple days ago, confirmed cases were set to double every 4 days. So do the math on that. That's the rough estimates of doubling every 4 days. It might be quicker now.
So in order to contain this, and I think we should go on the basis of trying to contain it. I'm reminded of an episode. Reminded of an episode. So the younger people that are listening today may not know this, but the older people will get it. Is an episode of Andy Griffith's show, where Barney Fife, the deputy, there was a particular scene where Barney is heard to be saying, "We have to." Andy, he tells him, we have to nip it. We have to nip it in the butt. And I think this is where we're at today.
It's fair to say our opinion is, I think all three of ours, is that Trump got to nipping it in the butt a little late. After we tell the story, maybe paint that picture a little bit more, but
I would say a lot of world leaders got to it late.
A lot of them did, particularly Trump. But
I think you're absolutely true. I think the World Health Organization was astounded. I think they came out even with a statement saying how a lot of world leaders, countries, not only the Trump administration, was not taking this as seriously as they should. So that statement did come out, and I think a lot of people also, for whatever, and there's different reasons. We talk about bias now, we're talking about economics, but there's different reasons that any country as a world leader they're put in a position where they have to be cheerleaders for the country. They don't want mass hysteria, they don't want panic. So it's really, I think, hard for them. They're put between a rock and a hard place to really say, hey, look, we got to lock down everything. Now, I applaud actually what Italy has done. And I think they did the right thing, seeing how fast these cases were getting out of hand. That's the only way to do it.
Gotta reel it in.
And that's what China did. By the way, you see now, supposedly, we see the numbers that have not increased dramatically in China. They're actually coming in at 80 a day, while versus before they were coming in hundreds and even in thousands, jumping in thousands, supposedly because of the quarantine that they did and this clampdown, if you would. So we're starting to see less and less of that. So
it appears to be working.
working.
It's hard to say what constitutes a confirmed case.
Right.
We know China has maybe been deceptive in the past, so who knows? But it seems that quarantine is the only way to prevent more cases from spreading. I mean, that's how it is.
And the other thing that needs to be pointed out is this: just like the common cold or influenza, as we all know that a lot of us have gone through it. Exactly.
It's a whole new strain. So
it's a whole new strain.
Right. So if you've had the flu this season already, you can get COVID-19.
It's a new vaccine.
Strain.
Who knows how COVID-19 is gonna advance and mutate and change and potentially impose threats.
So let's talk about the economics of it, because I think the economics is very important, and I think that's on everybody's mind, forefront of everybody's mind. We've seen what it's done to the stock market. I mean, if you follow the stock market, you will see that the market was actually hitting new highs for the last 3 years. Pretty much, it's been going steadily up.
But before we jump into economics, can we go through the chronological process one more time? So, bad Wuhan spread to Italy largely, and certain areas, obviously, more specific areas.
World.
Well, also the Middle East, of course. Iran is the third country that's been hit the hardest, also.
Right. And, it's telling you we can see the countries where
Korea, by the way,
I also
Korea,
like
which
to
was
point out the
Iran.
cruise ship factor on that. 696 confirmed cases just on cruise ships.
they almost count it as its own country. Cruise ships are known to be petri dishes.
Imagine that nightmare if you're taking a wonderful cruise, which I've taken 3 or 4 cruises, and they're absolutely wonderful for anybody that's taken cruises. You know how wonderful they are. But can you imagine the nightmarish scenario there, that you go on a cruise for 7 days or 14 days, and all of a sudden you get this, you're quarantined, you're stuck in your room,
and
that's
the
a
key
nightmarish.
with ships and planes is that the air is circulating. So it's literally just infested air circulating, and that's why
petri dishes for this shit.
It's crazy stuff.
That's why they're cruise ships, cruise lines have canceled. That's why airplanes have canceled.
Yeah, and so the economics of that, this is if we talk about the economics, this is going to have just an absolute huge impact. And I follow the economics. And once again, when I started following this back in December, not only for the human aspect, but because I invest in stocks, I think to me it was important to follow, because anything such like that can really bring any market down. And of course, it's brought all world markets down. So where do we go from here? As far as the economics standpoint is...
Could you pull up just like the Dow, or give us like a 1 month on the Dow, or what would you suggest pulling up just to see a graph of where we've been at the last month or two?
Yeah, so literally
like
a week and a half or so ago, we were hitting all-time highs. The market has performed incredibly well in the last really 5 years, 10 years, but even especially the last 3 years has performed exceptionally well. Unemployment rate is very low.
You said we were on an 11-year run. You told me this earlier. We were on. Go ahead.
Yeah. So we just ended an 11-year bull run. So this market has had a bull
record.
run. It's an absolute record. We've never had a bull market last this long. Usually,
basically means it's been going up for 11 years.
11 years. We've if you look at any graph, you'll be able to see it.
For people who don't know, it's not every stock has gone up, of course, but the overall market, the Dow, overall has gone up.
I think it's fair to say that 85% of all stocks have all benefit from this.
Sure.
I think you'll find very few stocks that have not in one way or another. Certainly, you're going to have your exceptions in everything. But we've had a tremendous bull market. It's lasted for 11 years, and it's taken this microscopic bug that we can't even see to bring the world and the financial aspect of the world down on its knees, and we're literally down on its knees. And so,
click on the 1 month.
That's why I don't understand why it's still a split issue. I mean, I think it's
6 months
pretty compelling that this is a huge concern, even for public health, for finance, anything.
That 6 month, I would say, is very telling.
well, no, if you can go do a 10-year or 11-year, because that will tell you, you can actually see
There it is.
that's the incredible run. I mean, that graph
Can you
tells it all.
explain
Right
it for
there.
people who are not watching?
Yeah, so this is it's an 11-year bull market. The last time that we had a market that went down was in 1987. It lost 508 points in one day, which it was absolutely. It was over 20. It was 23.6% in 1987 when we had that crash. It was called Black Monday. There's some great information on anybody that wants to see that. And then after that, of course, we picked up, and
For the last 11 years, it's been
for the last
consistently
11
going
years, it's been an incredible market.
So I think that's important, in reference to what Trump came out and said, that, in my opinion, looking at his bias, he's had a great 11-year run. He's carried it. Basically,
Well, not 11-year run. I mean,
Well,
he's been in office for 3
right.
years.
He's got this record. I see him as a quarterback carrying a football down, and he wants to make it to the end zone. And he wants to go as long as he can, so he's not going to come out with this information for as long as
Especially
possible.
right now.
So, he's running as far down. Maybe he wants to go 12 years. He wants to go both terms, and he doesn't want to ruin his record, essentially. So I think, in my opinion, that shows a potential bias from Trump in not wanting to come out and, admit the seriousness of the coronavirus or COVID. And basically that's why he kept maybe some information to himself. That's why he said fake news and kept it quiet.
We don't know that.
And
But
that's my opinion mostly
Yeah.
off of what I'm seeing.
But also it's fair to
My
say
opinion.
that he did actually act well over a month and a half ago to literally shut down any flights into China.
He did. And
So I
that's
think it's
more
fair
of
to say that
secretly,
as
I would say that I believe that he's been taking steps and working to stop it more secretly, but publicly he said it's less of a concern than people are saying, and the media's blowing out of
Look, I think
proportion.
when you look into politics and you I think talk to any political analyst, they will tell you the two things that can bring down any presidency, and I don't care if it's Trump, Obama, Clinton, Bush, or whatever.
Anyone.
Any presidency is either an unpopular war that lasts for a long time, or something like this, a pandemic that can actually bring you down. So those are the two, catastrophe like that. Those are the two major issues that can bring down any presidency. And certainly, I think any president would be concerned with that. But I think also ultimately, our leaders, be it Trump or anybody else, they have a responsibility to know, and of course they know much more than we do, to get ahead of the situation, in other words, and make sure or try to be ahead of this. So I firmly believe this. whether it's Trump or anybody else in office as president. I think if Trump or any other president had come out a month ago and said, look, we all know now, based on the news, the situation in China, it's pretty grave over there, it's starting to spread, et cetera, et cetera. Look, I just want to tell the American people that I firmly believe that we're going to get infections. We actually have a few here, and we think it's actually going to get worse. I don't want to panic, I don't want to alarm anybody, but we need to be as transparent and as truthful as we possibly can by saying we should start taking measures now to get ahead of this before it gets out of hand. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe that should have been done better, mm-hmm. even with the testing kits and everything else. Now, in hindsight, I think we all, that Monday night quarterbacking that people do. In hindsight, I think we can all say, I should have done this better, I should have done that better. Mm-hmm. The other thing is this that comes to my mind, which I think is important for people to understand. We can be as critical as we want of our government officials, and God only knows I'm very critical of them.
Fair.
Okay, very critical. From local levels to the state and especially the federal level. We can be very critical of them, and I certainly am. But having said that, the way I kind of look at this situation is that these things don't happen very often. These pandemics don't happen very often. And even though we have some examples from the past, but I look at it like I was in the restaurant business, right? And let's just say hypothetically, because a lot of people said we've been ill prepared, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, fine. But I was in the restaurant business for 40 years. And I tried to be as prepared as much as possible, as you know that, Marco, anticipating what's going to come on weekends are always going to be busier than Mondays, et cetera, et cetera.
Down to even the price of the cheese and the onions, depending on what's going on with the market.
Exactly. I was very much on top of those things or whatever. But let's hypothetically say that I'm still in the restaurant business and I have 5 restaurants and I decide to open up a new restaurant. And in this new restaurant, we have, all my food is ordered, all my employees are in place. And for this grand opening, we are expecting, say, 100 people. But I'm preparing for 150 people because I know the chances are we're going to get more than 100 people. So I'm preparing for 150 people. But guess what? On that day of grand opening, we don't get 150 people. We get 1,000 people. Mm-hmm. There's no way that any restaurateur can tell you that you can be prepared mm-hmm. for that type of situation. Mm-hmm. And I think, not to sort of the analogy that I'm making here, maybe as fair as unfair, but that's kind of the situation that I think any country finds itself when you have a disease like that can spread so fast and so rapidly, and it's unknown. Exactly. So again, I put a lot of blame on all governments across the board, but I think you have to be rational also about this as well.
Right, and sympathize with them in that. Sure. If we're talking about test kits, that's just kind of something that I brought up a few times, and I think that's a really important part of this. Italy got the first test kits. Who's making them? As far as people are talking about pharmaceutical stocks, I'm going to invest in this pharmaceutical stock because they're going to come out with the cure. So can you explain that aspect of it? Yeah,
so right now, currently, actually, for the last probably month or so, there is roughly, I think, about 26 or 28 pharmaceutical companies, big and small. And we're talking some big players and also smaller players that are looking into finding some sort of vaccine or treatment for this. And I think people need to understand this because this is actually very, very important. Whereas it has been said on numerous occasions, and I just want to be clear and repeat this also, that in order they can maybe find a treatment. What does a treatment mean? That maybe to try to treat you when you're feeling bad, whatever. That could come up in 3 or 4 months. Treating the symptoms in 2-3 months. There's already now the FDA has really Trump has pushed the FDA to the process of going from phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 trials. He shortened that process to sped the process up. Now, so I think a treatment is fine, but an actual vaccine, being that the vaccine to actually cure this is literally 8 months to over a year away. And so I think that's where the other problem here lies.
That's what I've seen as well, and I think people are misunderstanding that. They think that it's going to blow over in a week, in a month. No. We're not looking at a vaccine within the next 3 or 6 months, probably longer, probably 6 months or a year. And I did see something about a Canadian researcher breakthrough on it. But of course they have to do test.
You have to do test experiments
before they release it to the public.
Look,
you know?
it could be, it's possible. Like I've always said, anything is possible. It's very possible that something can happen in, say, 4 or 6 months for vaccine. But as even the experts are saying, it's highly
exactly. And any pharmaceutical, they're not going to release unless there's extensive testing. Imagine that they screw something up and they release this vaccine, but it actually causes another issue.
The other problem we have, 2 other main problems here that we have, is the fact that even if they get to that point where they find a vaccine, let's say in 4 months from now, pharmaceutical company, big or small, finds a vaccine, they will have an enormous problem producing enough vaccines to treat all the people.
Sure.
So let's keep that in mind.
About millions and millions and millions.
We could be talking about millions and millions, and hopefully not.
Yeah. Speculation estimates. I don't know if you mentioned this. What percent? I believe you said something about they're speculating that 300 million people will be infected.
No. There was speculation, which I thought, boy, those are big numbers. Some experts are saying, or doctors or medical field are saying that by the time this is all said and done, that here in America, we will have about 150 million people that are being infected,
which is almost half.
Which is almost half, and I don't know.
I hope that's not.
I certainly hope that's not the case, but that's a huge number of people. I will also tell you that the German Chancellor Merkel did say, this was last week, she did say that Germany should be prepared for the vast majority of Germans, if not all Germans, to actually be infected. I don't know. Those are big words. Now,
that's a big claim.
Yeah. So going back to the pharmaceuticals, I want to touch on this basis. Apart from the fact that they were going to have a very difficult time to actually have a vaccine to make enough if they get to that point. What's interesting to note here is 2 things. A lot of these companies, which are private companies, so these are private companies that make money by researching these things, spending a lot of money, and then being able to sell the vaccines. What is happening here is that they're in one of those catch-22 phrases where they're spending an incredible amount of time and energy and money and everything else, and it may all go out the window. Mm-hmm. And what do I mean by that?
Sure, yeah. They're spending money to get this vaccine or to work on it, and one person's going to find it, and all that money has been wasted, essentially.
Not only that, some people are saying that by summer coming along, because supposedly this coronavirus does not do well in summer heat and humidity. It does not like it. So we can see diminishing numbers right away. So with the quarantine and everything else, this particular thing could go away in a month and a half, 2 months, 3 months, whatever the case might be. Then all the money that they've invested, time and energy, literally goes out the window. So that's why a lot of these companies are hesitant, because that's exactly what occurred during the SARS and the MERS. They started testing, and then literally after they got burned big time.
So it is fair to note that even if there was a vaccine in a month from now, miraculously, it's still going to have long-lasting political, social, economic effects on us, regardless. So that's something I want to drive home repeatedly.
Yeah,
make clear.
The economics
reparations will not happen.
I'm sorry?
Reparations are not going to happen in a month or 2.
The economics effects are here. They're going to already happen. I mean, our market is. We're already in a recession. Literally, after you lose about over 20%, and the market has lost over 20%, that's actually considered we are in a recession mode. Now, we hope that things turn around, but we're actually right now considered in a recession mode. As far as the economic impact, it's here. Listen, by the time we get out of it, we're not going to get out of it. It's going to cost us, trillions of dollars. Now, having said that, there's been reports that this, the coronavirus spending bill, or whatever you want, protection bill that's going through Congress right now, that the president is pushing for and has to be enacted by Congress. It's a huge number. And there's already, questionable things that supposedly the Democrats have put into this bill that Republicans are balking at, which is my understanding, like, for example... And
they're trying to slip extra stuff in there.
Absolutely, which drives me absolutely crazy in every single bill that they do. And supposedly, in this particular huge bill, which is, like 120 pages that nobody actually reads, they find that what slipped in there is that there's $1 billion that goes towards Planned Parenthood for so-called, for them...
And then when Republicans reject it, usually the media makes them look bad and says they shot down this bill to stop
Yep.
the coronavirus.
To stop it, they don't tell you exactly why
what
the
else is
reason
in
was.
there?
Like any
Why?
positive,
Okay.
and
So
that's
if you
what
want
they
to
said.
do that, I would say, put that on a separate bill. Do whatever you got to do. But this is no time to be playing politics. It's as simple as that.
Right.
Right. We
Alright,
need
this is the last
action,
time we
not
do that.
So the
debate.
other thing is, this is going to. By the way, people should understand that this is going to cost us.
The taxpayer.
Everybody that's in this room, everybody that's listening right now, if you're working and you have a job, or you've worked and you have a job, whatever, this is going to cost you money. Let's keep that all in mind.
It'll be an inconvenience. Some people will make money. A lot of people will lose money. A lot of people will lose jobs or lose time at work. Translates to a lot of different things.
Look, you're going to see bailouts. You're going to see bailout of the airline companies. You're going to see bailout of the cruise industry. You're going to see bailouts of small businesses. You're going to see all kinds of bailouts. You're going to see all kinds of incentives for no payroll taxes, but just extending the income tax of April 15th to longer. You're going to see college people, the kids are going to college. All those. You're going to see massive bailouts all across the board.
Right.
And not my problem, because we need to help these people out. Okay. But the thing is, what we have to consider also is, this is going to still come back and bite us all in the ass.
Who is paying for
because
this
somebody's
ultimately?
got to pay for this eventually,
Right.
which is going to be 6 months, a year, 2 years down the road.
Right.
And so, a lot of people, we don't consider this, but we should be considering this. Funny story. Many, many years ago, Don Manzullo, former Congressman Don Manzullo, we were talking today. He was at the restaurant. We were doing a party for his family and stuff. But anyways, we were talking, and something that stuck to my mind, that he was doing a town hall meeting while he was congressman of our district, District 16, I believe it is. And in this town hall meeting, they were talking about a specific bill that they were trying to get passed through in Congress. Because if you're a congressman, you have, like, say, you're in Washington D.C., right? And so he was telling me that in this particular thing, there was a lot of anger towards this particular, bill that was being passed in Congress. But then they also had this problem with, something that had to do with the state of Illinois, like a higher tax that was going to be on there. I remember the specifics. But so one older gentleman, rose up from his chair and he said, Congressman, I'm really upset about this state tax or this thing that you guys want to do here, because it's going to, they were talking about hundreds of millions of dollars that we're going to have to increase, right? He says, I'm really, really upset by this. He says, I don't want you or anybody else, to pay for this, blah, 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 or I don't want you to vote on it. Let the federal government pay for it. And so Congressman Manzullo said, wait a minute. So who do you think the federal government is?
We'll pick it off the federal government tree.
That's us also. We're the local government, we're the state government, we're the federal government. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of disconnect as far as when it goes to politics, and unfortunately, I think a lot of people don't understand
Where the money comes from.
where the money comes from. We pay for local taxes, state taxes, and federal taxes. His idea was, screw that. I don't want to pay here on the state level. I don't want to be burned by that. Let the federal, government pick that up. Well, who the hell is the federal government? It's still us. It's our money.
Right.
So let's not kid ourselves.
Yep.
This is going to cost us big time.
I did have a question backtracking to Trump's meeting with the big pharmaceutical CEOs. So I believe, from my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, he essentially asked them to come together, come out, find the cure quickly and provide it cheaply. And he's basically asking them to do that. At some point, if someone did come up with a cure and was selling it for $100 a shot,
That's not going to happen.
would he force them to, would he say, mandate that they couldn't do that? Or right now, is he basically asking them to play nice and hopefully everyone will?
Look, in my opinion here, this is again my opinion, the pharmaceutical industry is, I think they do enormous good, but it is an incredible money-making machine, and I think it's fair to say that they could be greedy sometimes and take advantage of people we all know, that have to buy prescription drugs, how costly they are. But in this particular case, I would dare say that no company, whether big or small, in this particular case is going to take advantage of that. And because I think
That would be terrible for
That'd
That'd be a
PR.
bad reputation.
Yep.
First of all, I
Literally
think
gouging
any
the whole
administrative,
world.
there's no gouging going to be on. So I think if any company does find that, I think that
It'll
information will be shared so that other companies can produce it and bring this down thing to a halt. So I feel pretty good about that.
So the process is one of these pharmaceutical companies, one of these private companies comes out with a cure, they test it, it gets FDA approval, sped up. I'm sure they'll probably have some federal funding to some extent.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, there is actually private companies that are working on that, pharmaceutical companies, but there's also a partnership between private and also federal, where, yes, federal funding in the billions of dollars by this administration has been given for them to speed up or try and do whatever it takes, in other words, to find a cure.
And then whenever they find the cure, they share it with everyone, and basically,
I think so.
Probably the leading companies will pump out this cure for a reasonable price. Hopefully, it's subsidized by the government, and then that's how this gets out.
In my opinion, there's no question about it.
Okay.
Yep.
Interesting. And yeah, we've never been through a situation like this, so who knows how it will play out? But that's how it seems to be. That it's an interesting time when big pharmaceutical companies step up to save the world.
And you know what? We need them to do that. But I think there's some lessons to be learned here after we get through this hump. And I think we will get through it because, as I mentioned before, I think we humans, we're an incredible species, and there's nothing like us and what we're capable of doing. And so I think this too, as they say, shall pass. But I think the lessons learned here is that we really have to be more prepared for the next epidemic, pandemic that comes.
And like you said, I think the finger pointing is important at that stage. When this is all over, maybe, or during this, it's not just finger pointing to blame someone, but it's where did we mess up on this? How did it get this bad? How do we make sure this never happens again? And that's where we trace it back to issues with China, maybe issues with our test kits, or maybe communication from the president with his people or the world. This certainly is, at the very least, exposed a lot of issues, within our politics and economy throughout the world.
On many fronts.
When we were talking before, you had asked me, Marco, also in reference what my opinion was as far as on the stock market side and the level of that. And I think there's some people out there that if you deal with stocks or if you've dealt with stocks, you're concerned about that. And my opinion on that is this, that we're going to see things here in the United States and other countries, but let's talk about the United States. We're going to see things get worse before they get better, as far as infections, as far as deaths.
Certainly.
As far as all of us, I think we could literally wind up quarantine or lockdown.
Certainly.
I think that possibility exists. But in that point, if we get to that point, let's say in a week or two, we will see further deterioration in the stock market. There's no question in my mind that we're going to see more of a downturn. We could literally be losing another 15, 20 more, or 20 percentage points, which is huge. Now, that will clearly put us in a recession. And so a lot of people are saying that have stocks or 401k plans, should they be selling? The reason why we have the panic in the market is to explain it to people that really don't understand the stock market. So these big companies in the stock market is the engine what runs America, and that's a lot of people don't understand that. Mm-hmm. So we don't want to stop that engine from running because you will cause total chaos. It's as simple as that. Mm-hmm. So how do you prevent something from doing that? Well, if everybody, I guess the best way to explain it is if you're in one big room and you have 100 people that are in this room, literally like sardines are all together, and somebody yells fire. Everybody's there's only one small door. Everybody tries, obviously, to save their lives and get out of that room through that one door.
That's why it's illegal to yell fire in a movie theater.
Exactly. And this is exactly what happens in the stock market. When there's panic, literally there is not only people that want to sell, it's computerized selling, so everybody tries to sell, which absolutely just takes the market completely down. Now, we don't want to get to that point. Once again, the panic, the fear. As Franklin Delano Roosevelt said, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. We have gotten to that point in this country. And that's why, the toilet paper, by the way, I'm going to need to take that with me before I go for the consolation prize.
We pay you.
Yeah, thank you, because, the other sham, if you want to talk about sham, when you called me to do this show, I was in the green room, because you have the green room,
sure.
David Letterman and Jay Leno had the green room. I was told when you called me that we're going to have lobster and, and caviar, which, I've never eaten, but I love.
Mute the audio.
Steaks and prime rib, and I get.
Let's wrap this.
But then I get stale Cheetos, and I asked, Kurt, for example, for a nice sparkling water. You set them outside with the garden hose to fill up the pitcher.
Not even an ice cube.
All right, so I just just want to point out.
Talk about Sham.
I got a Corona.
I'll take one. But anyways, so but the other thing that I think is perplexing and really a lot of people are like, what is this fascination with the toilet paper? I mean, I guess I can understand, the Lysol wipes and disinfectants or whatever. But as we all know, what's happened in the last week here in Rockford, but in other places, is that there has been literally a run on toilet paper where the shelves are completely empty. Now, I understand the panic aspect that you want to protect your family and protect yourself. And so you run out and you try to get toilet paper. But to me, if we get to that stage where we have to stay at home, I would think you want to supply yourself with a bunch of food. Because if you don't, and the food is not necessarily running out. So I'm thinking to myself, if you're not buying a lot of food and storing it, why do you need toilet paper? And also, there's other ways that one can clean themselves. I mean, there's Kleenex boxes, there's paper rolls, there's napkins, and also you can always take a shower and go in the bathroom and do the old squishy. So I don't understand this business about running out of toilet paper, because quite honestly, I need some and it's all run out. I can't get it.
I think Slouch has pulled up some relevant content for us. We have a
oh my God.
Hong Kong police busting toilet paper gang. All right. What are these deets?
Knife-wielding robbers.
Yeah, did you get that meme on there?
Are you able to put on that meme that I gave you, please? Are you able to do that? Can you put it on? Because I thought, and look,
That was a good one.
I have to tell you, there's a lot of people that, of course, are coming out with. And by the way, once again, humans, I love memes, right? The stuff that they come out with is just incredible. But this is kind of telling.
One of the greatest inventions of humans.
One of the greatest inventions of humans. That's why we're so special. But I would literally say to people, look, get what you got to get. And by the way, don't panic. But look, and I don't want to be down on people on this, because everybody has different, issues or different ways of doing things or whatever. So I don't want to get down on people and say that if you're going out and buying extra cases of toilet paper, by all means do
Maybe
that.
you have a family of 18,
Whatever the case might be. So I don't want to get down too much on that. But I think I think now at this time, like the Italians have done in Italy, that have trying to pull together like any country does, and like we did for 9/11. If we all remember what happened in 9/11, this country didn't make a difference if you were a Republican, if you were a Democrat, Independent. We all came together. I mean, I remember that time, and it was pretty incredible. Okay, incredible what happened in New York, but incredible also what people did, and that was very telling. So I think in this particular case, I think we all do need to come together and remember that it's the benefit for all of us. Let's not think just for ourselves.
Don't be a jackass and hoard supplies.
You have that meme? You need to put that up.
If you can explain, again, I think we understand what's going on, but for a lot of people, I've had a lot of friends, seen a lot of misconceptions. One of them is buy stocks now, buy low, sell high. I think free stock advice. I only finished my panic room.
All right, so here's the classic, right? Finally finished my panic room. So now we know why there is a run on toilet paper, because this is what people are doing, and I'm thinking this looks pretty good in my bathroom also right now.
It's a bathroom and
okay. And then here, and I think they come in different colors, do they not? Rainbow colors and white and black and purple and pink and whatever. So those are lovely to get for your wife next time.
For everyone listening,
oh my God, don't put that.
For everyone listening, you're gonna have to watch to get the dank memery. We're not gonna explain the memes to you, all right?
Right.
It's not gonna happen.
Yeah, so going back to, I think the question is fair, and I think
just to answer. So I guess the two big misconceptions I've seen. One is people are saying buy low, sell high, buy the stocks. For some free stock advice from me, my opinion, not a stockbroker, and probably from my dad, it's going to continue to go down. It's very volatile right now. There's more issues. It's not. I think it's fair to say the general consensus is it's not as low as it's going to be. It will continue to sink and be very volatile. So I wouldn't necessarily rush out and buy stocks. You can make a lot of money. There's options and forex, and you can certainly make money during these times. And a lot of
volatility.
A lot of people are, but it's a very risky market. It's not a buy low, sell high time. It's not going to pass in a week. So that's one misconception.
Excuse me, Marco. I think really in this market right now, quite honestly, you're right. I think it's taken a tremendous hit in a lot of people's 401ks, or if they've sold, they've probably lost a lot of money, needless to say. I think there is places where you can make money in this market. And as we've talked about, this is in what's called the options trading market, for either puts or calls, which is totally different.
Or
this
even
is a little bit more complexity or whatever.
Specific stocks, the face mask stocks and Lysol, maybe specific stocks.
Wow. I mean, if you talk about those, there is for those, Kimberly Clark, which does the Kleenex and other stuff, the Clorox company, but also, at the beginning, a particular company that I know of that was making what's called the N95 masks. I mean, you should have seen what happened, literally
Sold
weeks
out,
ago.
Stock exploded.
The stock exploded. I literally saw it go from $4.50 a share, $4.50 a share. Within a few weeks, it literally went to $49.58 a share. I mean, it's just huge. So you saw that also in small biotechs where they were working on this, where people were buying it up no matter what price it was. So, those are very, very few.
Right.
That's just a very minuscule of stocks. So I think it's very dangerous now. Well, I wouldn't say dangerous. I think it's dangerous to come in
with that
right
mentality
now,
that we're in a little dip and it's going to
no,
go.
this is. I think we will pass through this. I think hopefully in 2 months and 3 months, if things, the coronavirus pretty much goes away, I think you will see a huge uptick, to the upside. But there's still going to be volatility because you're going to have people then taking in and taking out.
For the record, my opinion is that we're going through tough times for 6+ months, and that's just my opinion on that.
I think so too.
So I guess now that you've painted this picture of what's going on with these countries and how it's spread and a little bit of the details of the economic and the test kits and all that, can you answer this question?
What's 2 + 2? 5.
No. Why is everyone buying all the toilet paper?
I think
it's a shitty situation.
It's a shitty situation, but to simply answer that question, you've kind of painted that picture. So to simply answer it,
I think it's the panic mentality. I think it's absolute the panic mentality. I think when we get into social situations and the media, whether right or wrong, and we had talked about this before, we can fault the media, but also I think as much as I fault the media, and I do, but do they have? I think what you said, do they have a responsibility to tell us these things? Should they be keeping it from us? Now, I think in some cases they maybe can, overdo it.
At this point, it's fair to say the media is the boy who cried wolf, and that's been my opinion.
We'll have to see. I
think that this is actually a serious scenario. Now they're actually trying to come out and warn people, and maybe with the best intention, and maybe they're right about it, but it's fake news. It's fallen on deaf ears. It's fallen on deaf ears.
Well, I will tell you that I think it's been because of the run on toilet paper has been because of the scare, and I think the first thing that comes to mind as a parent, or really as for senior citizens that think they're not going to be able to go out, they might tell the kids, "Hey, listen, buy me an extra roll of toilet paper or whatever."
I think literally this meme culture, has actually driven the toilet. As crazy as it sounds, I think it might have just started with a good meme, and then you share it, and your friends are getting toilet paper. And now I'm at this point where I have 4 rolls at home, but I want to go get a case.
You're not going to find
and there literally isn't any. There's that panic mentality, and I think that's an important concept to understand with all products in our world economy.
Right.
In every economy, in every country, all products are going through the same thing.
Yes.
We're just seeing it first with toilet paper, probably because of memes.
Right, and it's not just toilet paper, because we were talking about this during the break. Was
bottled
the fact,
water,
bottled water, of course, all the wipes and everything else. But also this last week here, in the last 2 or 3 days, they have literally hit the supermarkets with cleaning out their meat supply. So if you go to a supermarket, their meat supply is gone. And the breads, cereals.
We're going to see this with other items as we go along.
Absolutely.
And again, don't be a jackass and take all the supplies, but go out and
get what you need.
Get what you need. There's not a good time to be out of anything.
Well, okay, so I think a lot of people now are saying, look, for those that are taking it seriously, they're going to say, obviously this thing is getting worse, and so we probably can get to the point where we are quarantined for at least 14 days. So if that happens,
totally conceivable.
I'm not going to run out of toilet paper.
Right, have toilet paper for 14 days. Do the math, figure out how many rolls you need.
And then bring the rest back to the store.
Headline that Baby Ostrich pulled up. Canadian couple made over $70,000 reselling Lysol wipes on Amazon at inflated prices. Don't be that guy.
Do not be.
Out of Canada too. Canadians are usually nice. It's crazy. Must be the only bad couple in Canada.
The silver lining here is not all in gloom, doom and gloom. We will conquer this thing. We will do okay. In 2, 3, 4 months from now, I think the picture is going to definitely change. We're going to be just fine. So let's not be panicked. Let's not fear. Let's keep our heads. We're going to do just fine.
We're certainly going to have some updated episodes. Obviously, this is a big ongoing topic. I think we have a credible source. And we probably covered about half of it. There's a lot of other details to the story, but we can't get into everything. Is there anything else you wanted to wrap up with as far as information and content for this episode? Do you want to get it out now?
I think I've talked pretty much too much.
I think we've pretty much covered it.
I think we've talked too much, and I want to thank you guys for having me on at your first show. And of course, I wish you all the luck in the world.
Thanks for
Absolute
being our first
pleasure.
guest.
Okay.
Awesome.
Come on, you!